Hello, and welcome to Weed and Grub.
We forgot to do an intro.
We did. We were having such a good time with our fabulous guest, Matt, that we just smoked a joint and got right into it.
So, what up, Mary Jane?
How's it going, Mike?
Great. Welcome to Weed and Grub, everyone. This is a podcast about comedy,
Cannabis,
culture,
cooking,
calling shit out, and
Klinman.
Matt Klinman.
He's so fucking great. That was the best time. I felt like it was that kind of energy when you like you just get going and you feel like you just like you run and then you start all running together and then like you leap off a cliff into the ocean and then you swim together and then you reach the other side and then you get out onto land and you keep running together. Like that's what it felt like.
It really did feel like that. No wonder we forgot to do an intro because it just like was off to the races.
Well, and that joint also like was lighting the room on fire. So
well, it's infused.
It was great. It's a Cali roll. Shout out.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
You ready to get to it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, here is our interview with
Matt Klinman. Klinman?
Klinman. Doesn't she look cool?
Very cool.
Right.
I mean, yes, this whole room is cool. This whole like place is like, damn, there's like fucking soft couch. Like half the podcasts I do are like conference rooms. I feel like they're like boardrooms or something.
Weird.
You know what I mean? Where there's like a big table. And it makes sense because people want to have their laptops and stuff. So people have like made like big boardroom tables. And then it's just like, are we just like having a meeting about like taking over your company? Like what is happening?
Yeah. Is it conducive to conversation? Well, I hope this room is. This feels very nice.
This is great. You're like hugging a pillow.
I
It's
know,
like we're really like hanging out. This is nice. This is
by the end of this episode, we're just going to be like touching pillows and couches and it's going to be silent. But
stroking
this is a
the
squishy
curtains.
one. This is a firm one.
Hopefully that gets everybody excited to check out your new projects, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Oh,
yes,
thank
I'm
you.
good. Thank you. Perfect start.
Let me give you a great intro.
Please, thank you.
How are you, Matt?
I'm great. It's
Yeah?
great. It's really good to see you.
You too,
It's cool
dude.
to be in a cool room that you had. Like, to see someone and then be like shown a great room they have access to. I mean, incredible. There's plants on the wall, fake plants.
I know.
Yeah, we got the jungle wall. So good.
So we haven't seen each other in years. And when you emailed and you were like, yo, dude, I'm in LA. Are you living here? Like,
I
what's
live
going
here.
on?
Yes, I live here. I've lived here. Well, it's because the pandemic just like deletes a big part of everybody's lives or whatever.
I don't even count that time.
So I moved here in like 2018.
Okay.
And
wait, so then was I in New York when you were like doing a going away thing and I couldn't make it to a New York
maybe
going away party and you were like, come smoke?
Possibly.
That was the timeline.
That would make sense. Yeah. 2017, 2018, something like that.
Wow.
That's when you were around. Yeah. Or then, but also when you leave New York, you like reverberate, you like go back like the next year, like 3 times because you can't leave. And then you keep like having like, hey, I left, but I'm leaving. Like you can't just leave New York. It's like it's sort of like a third lobe of your brain that like New York is, you know what I mean? And most of that is filled with like the MTA map, but like, it's just like another limb that you like have to discard when you move here.
And in my experience, it will forever be that extra lobe. And I know to the degree that I lived in New York for 13 years before I moved here.
Okay, yeah.
And I know that it will never leave me because I still read all of the New York newspapers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right.
Well,
those are the only ones I understand. Right?
Yeah, I don't read any LA newspapers. You check
it's
the
like
New York
NY
Times.
Mag and like Gothamist. I go, though maybe Gothamist is dead now.
Mike is having to put out a fire here with this joint.
this
I think
is
this
like
is really entertaining. If anyone is watching the YouTube version of what's going on, Mike has been preoccupied with like
tail of smoke. Do we do it? Do you need water?
Fire. You okay?
Yeah. That's like a metaphor for my life, though. Yeah.
Just
you put it out and then you
lit the room on fire.
Yeah. And then I slowly, casually just kind of like try and put it out, but it keeps burning.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not a big deal. This is not a big deal. What horrible thing is happening in my life, it's not a big deal. Don't
this
worry
is
about
fine.
It. Yeah, this is absolutely fine.
That was
that was
an act out of the "this is fine" meme.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, can you take me back because I am new to your whole sort of association, friendship, working together world. How did you two meet?
So we met through my app. through an app. I made an app. My name is Matt Klinman. I'm a comedian, but for some reason I made an app, a joke writing app when I worked at Funny or Die. So I was like into tech. You know, you got to remember, like back in 2012, 2013, everybody was like, I got to make an app. You know, everybody was into tech. Tech was cool.
Did you
Nobody
make an
thought
app,
it
Mike?
sucks.
No, I wrote on an app because Matt's smarter than I am.
Well, smart. I don't know. It's like there's a certain kind of what working in tech has made me realize, to be honest, is there are many, like being smart means so many different things, and being smart in one way doesn't mean you have wisdom in any other way, and being smart in one way and very, I can't emphatically say this enough, doesn't mean you will be smart in other ways or that anyone should ever listen to you. So just because you made a piece of technology that was successful or deemed successful in some ways does not mean people should listen to that person for other things. That's just like a lesson that I think people should carry with them. And that applies to myself too, but I'm obviously speaking about other people. But I wrote for The Onion and I wrote for Funny or Die in New York. And at Funny or Die like was a tech company. If you guys remember, Funny or Die used to compete with YouTube. Like they were like competitors for your online videos. Do you remember going to like,
I do.
Yeah. Like
the landlord set it off.
Yes,
That was it. Yeah,
I was
Pearl
like,
the landlord, right?
Right. If I want to watch like cute animals, I go to YouTube. If I want to watch like a sketch or a comedy video or stand-up, I go to funnyordie.com.
Did you ever see the Funny or Die series about the High Times offices?
No, there was a whole series about the High Times offices?
And they nailed it.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. We were like, I worked at High Times at the time and they were like, yep, they got it exactly
That's what it would be like?
But yeah, it was like, so sorry to interject.
Oh, no, totally. So then they had a whole team of developers and finally they like kind of were like, hey, we should make an app like for comedy writers. And they wanted to make a joke writing app. And I had done some stuff. I had won some like comedy hackathons that some friends of mine had put together. That some people I used to work with at The Onion, where it was like they would slam developers with comedians together to make like funny apps.
Wow.
Like, yeah, which was cool. I made one called, the first one I won with was called Shout Roulette, where it was like, do you remember? It was a chat roulette, right? Where you would just like pick random and a different person would be masturbating at you.
I will say there was like a month or two before the masturbating thing took over where it was legitimately like you could talk to someone in their living room in Poland. And
totally.
Like, oh, cool. But yes.
And it was actually a really cool thing. And I've wondered why there hasn't been new versions of it, but I guess it's because it's very hard to get the machine to kick people off for masturbating. But maybe AI is smart enough now that I can recognize masturbators and kick them off right away.
We need dick recognition systems.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So
and pussy recognition.
And yes, and pussy recognition system. Thank you for saying that. And whatever it is that you might be masturbating on your body that gives you the same sort of sexual pleasure. Yes, right, exactly. Who knows?
Yep.
But anyways, the first app I made was like it set you up with someone who disagreed with you and then about like an issue, and then you could just start arguing with them right away.
Fun.
So it's like if you wanted to argue with somebody about like weed policy or something, you put down I am pro federal legalization, and then someone else would put like I am anti federal legalization, and then it would put you on a video call and you could just start shouting at each other.
I mean, where is that?
I know, yeah. Now I'm saying, I'm like, oh, that was a good idea.
I love it too because it gets away the clutter of Twitter when you are actually trying to like maybe like talk some shit out, right?
Yeah,
totally.
It's a good idea.
Well, the idea is that you start shouting at each other, but then you kind of actually probably would get to know each other.
I guess it's what's that weird talkie space thing that you liked during the pandemic where people would go into a room?
I got duped by Clubhouse.
I was going to call it Blackboard.
Clubhouse called. I was like, this is the future, and then I was looking back now, and I'm like.
We were all just lonely and locked in our homes.
Lonely.
Yeah. So lonely.
So crazy.
Wow.
And just anyway, I worked on some app things. Funny or Die was like, Matt, would you want to come up with one? And I was like, sure, kind of. And then I kind of came up with this idea for a joke writing app called Pitch. And Pitch was like Twitter if it was only for comedians and if everyone was anonymous so that you could pitch bad jokes, but you didn't have to have shame about that.
Not ruining your own career.
Well, kind of, because only if it was good and people upvoted it would your name get attached to it. And so it was sort of like trying to use an anonymous message board, but like in a powerful way to like make for positive reasons rather than like what like 4chan is for, which is for like Nazi racist reasons, like using like the cool part about it, which we did with heavy moderation, like any asshole it was invite only. It was very like selective, like being in there. And if anyone was an asshole, we would get rid of them, which is like how you should run one of those things.
Yes.
And anyways, but Glazer was one of the most prolific writers on the app.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know that. I don't know. And then you got money, right? We would pay people. We gave comedians money.
I think that's right around when we met. You were writing for,
Yeah, I loved it.
I remember you like being
Still
on your
love it.
phone a lot and like, but you were working.
Yeah, writing something like, like just like something that was like a great topic. I wasn't ever good at topics. I could
making topics.
I could nail a
It's a
list,
different
but
skill.
the topic is, a little different. That's why I can't come up with one to make a funny example and move this conversation forward.
Right. It would be like what kinds of pillows should be in this weed podcast studio.
Right.
And you would be like, oh, like a weed shaped pillow. Oh, like a joint shaped pillow. Oh, like a nug shaped pillow. Like just basically what like I guess a computer could do now.
Wow.
But it was like lists of jokes and people would write them and then we would turn them into articles or try to sell them to sponsors or things like that and we would pay people money.
I mean, I feel like you both like your brains from writing at The Onion. I'm sure it's like you had done 1 million comedy push-ups at that point. You were just ready to like fire them out. I just don't know how. It's amazing to think about brains firing in that way.
Well, it was also for a lot of us, myself included, something we could put on our resume that was like thin credit wise, but we were like, no, like my stuff is out there and the articles are getting seen and I'm getting paid to be a comedy writer. So fuck, if I'm getting paid, it's going on the resume. Like, that's how it is,
That literally that's the thing I'm most proud about that is that I like a lot of people, the first time they ever got paid to write a joke, the first joke they ever sold was through that app, which is super cool. Cause I think that is what makes you feel like a comedy writer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also at the time, like Funny or Die. Well, now, I mean, we're going to get into your Max series in a moment.
Thank you.
But the at that time, Funny or Die was like, I remember I wrote an article for them about how to make lemon bars before your LSD kicks in. And like I had pitched it everywhere. And then Funny or Die came online. They were like, yeah, great. Then we'd love to have that. And I was like, finally a place for me,
It was a fucking great article. I read it before I met you.
Oh, really?
Like,
really?
This is for me.
Oh, nice.
I like this guy's kind of funny.
So how did you pivot from Onion to, or were you contributing to the Onion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I started at the Onion, I started contribute. Yeah. I mean, that's how that place worked, man. You like wrote headlines for like years before you even had like a shot at something more. But I wrote for their video department, the Onion News Network, for like 2 years, just submitting headlines to get turned into videos or to run in the little crawl beneath the videos. If you guys remember those Onion News Network fake news videos. And then after 2 years, they had an opening on the staff and I submitted for that. And then I got that. And then that was my first job, like in a writer's room and like writing. And so I was a staff writer for the Onion News Network and for some things related to that for a few years. Yeah.
How was it cool and fun?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like, that Simpsons episode where they go to New York City and then they go to like the Mad Magazine office and it's like everything that Bart ever wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It felt like that working for the Onion in New York City, like in Soho, like at the time. Probably a lot like what High Times, because like you worked at High Times around the same time.
Yeah, I was at High Times. I started in the offices like part-time in 2007, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that in New York? And that was in
Park Avenue, 419 Park Avenue South.
Totally. And so like, remember like working for like publications and stuff was really cool because everybody thought it was the coolest thing you could do. And then you would make those offices were just like the identities of those places.
Yeah.
And so it was like, and when I joined the Onion, it was still a lot of the people who had first been there in Madison, who had like first made the Onion paper and shit like that. So they had just like the coolest Gen Xers you could imagine, having like giant posters of like cool bands, like signed by cool band people and like Adult Swim shit everywhere and like old Onion shit everywhere. It was like so fucking cool. And so, so then getting to work in that office before they like destroyed it and moved to Chicago or whatever was like a really special, cool thing that feel very fortunate.
Do any videos, headlines, or crawls come to mind that you were like, dang, I fucking nailed that one?
Oh, man. Well, it's funny. I have a toddler now. I have a 18-month-old toddler, and the very first joke I pitched, the thing that like that was my first like, oh wow, I'm a comedy writer, was a video I pitched for the Onion News Network for their morning show. They used to have a fake morning show,
dude,
and it was the headline was introducing the new baby safe baby ball that lets you safely shake your baby. And so it was like a morning show segment where like an expert like put a little baby, a crying baby that just wouldn't be inconsolable, they'll put them in this little ball that has like, I don't know, like some sort of, hover, I don't know, whatever.
Like a gyroscope or something?
Thank you. A gyroscopic technology that allows you to shake the baby as hard as you need to, but the baby stays perfectly safe. So that was the first joke I ever sold and got turned to a video. And I remember, and now having the baby, I've been like, I always think about that because I would never shake my baby. But the thing about having a baby is all the solution, like you're always supposed to shake the baby just a little bit. It's kind of this weird thing where you are like to get the baby to sleep, you got to shake the baby just a little bit, but we don't call it that. We call it rocking, you call it whatever, but like, no, you kind of got to shake the baby just a little bit until it like passes out. That's what you're trying to do.
Oh man, that's good.
So at the Onion, was it full time?
Yeah,
at that point, staff writing?
Yeah. Well, but it was skirting every labor law. It was like I worked there full time on staff, and for the first 2 years, I was a contractor for the whole time. I don't know if that was the case for you guys too, or whatever. That's how like
I was
figured
freelance
that shit
for.
out.
I was like, I was a proofreader. I started as a proofreader and then copy editor, and then I was a writer, and I didn't get an editorial position for like 7 years. I think.
Okay, yeah, right, yeah. So, but I don't know, but it was for us. It was literally I was full time in the office doing it. Like it was just a classic thing. But but then I would file a 1099 or whatever. And then we later realized we should have been reporting that for like fraud or something like that. That was something because that's how they get away from then they don't have to pay you benefits and shit like that.
Yeah, and you're not unionized or anything.
Exactly. Yeah,
this year, right, or last year?
The people. I mean, there's the new California law. People are getting more and more wise to this sort of stuff, but I feel like because like Uber and stuff like that literally took this as like their main business model was what if we like paid freelancers, but it was cab drivers. It was just like, what if we did that same thing?
Destroying the world.
Yeah, right. So they figured it out en masse and now they're trying to crack down on it. But yeah, at the time it was just like how it was.
And were you doing stand up in New York at the same time?
I did more sketch and improv stuff. So I was like a UCB kind of like,
nice.
I taught sketch at UCB. I did like, I was on like Herald team for like 5 years and did that sort of stuff. So yeah, awesome. UCB.
Yeah, I lived across the street from that Gristedes.
Oh,
I was at 25th and 7th or 25th and 8th. Right there.
In like the buildings where they would always tell us to quiet down so that people like you could sleep. After
no,
shows.
I was loud as hell. We were part of the loud people.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was
Glad
with you
to
on
hear
the
it.
loud scale. That's awesome.
Yeah. So then, I don't know. Yeah, you're just bio. Like, well, yeah. Where should I?
Well,
should I keep going?
It's just cool because like to jump way ahead, you're one of the only people since High Maintenance who has gotten a weed show through on something main. So I just kind of wanted to like timeline it a little bit because like, I don't know, you just kind of like cracked a code. I think especially a lot of people who listen to this are going to be like, how the fuck did you pull it off? So I just kind of wanted to talk about New York a bit more, if you don't mind. Because like Funny or Die, especially in that heyday, did you just like leave the Onion and start going over there?
Yeah, basically like the Onion shut down in New York around the same time that Funny or Die was starting up an office, and a few friends of mine were like starting up an office there, and they asked me if I wanted to join up, and which was cool because they also were I was doing stuff like other gigs, like I did some Adult Swim stuff, some Comedy Central stuff, but they would like let you like do that stuff while also writing for them or whatever. And so it was like a very chill, nice gig in New York.
It's so crazy because I moved to LA thinking I wanted to be a late night show writer.
Oh.
And everybody talks about New York, how it's like, no, I was writing for Comedy Central and The Onion and Funny or Die and Adult Swim. And like New York was this hotbed of writing that never occurred to me and I never knew about. But so many people just stayed there and then crushed it.
Well, that sort of stuff was there a lot more than in LA. Like LA was like, but everyone in LA, like actually now that I live here, it's like, oh wait, it's a completely different thing to try to get into like scripted television, to try to write movies, like that sort of thing. But in New York, it's just like all late night show, all like joke writing, all like sketch, like all that kind of stuff is like what like makes the city go round.
Yeah.
Daily Show.
It's wild. I remember when I was living there, did you know the Story Pirates?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I know a bunch of people who did Story Pirates.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, totally.
A really good friend of mine, Chris Ferry. I don't know if you ever knew Chris Ferry, but I auditioned for the Story Pirates at the same time as Chris did. And I got a call back and then didn't get in. And I was always bummed because they were so freaking cool, but followed their work and everything. And I remember like one of the first times I went, Reggie Watts was doing it and Kristen Shaw.
Wow.
And Reggie, I had known, but I was like introduced to Kristen Shaw and like, I can't even remember some of the other big names, but it was just so crazy to think back to those times where I was like in a basement in Midtown watching Kristen Shaw do the Story Pirates, which was like improv for kids, basically, like really amazing storytelling. It was it was a very cool time for I saw Parna Noncherla do, weird comedy in a bar and like that kind of those level of people who I'm just so endlessly impressed by. But I feel like I was, just hanging out in the same circles at one time.
Yes, no, 100%.
Wild.
I moved to New York because I would come on weekends from college and watch like Jason Mantzoukas and like Lennon Parham and like John Daly and like Gemberling, like I don't know, all these people, like Ben Schwartz, or I remember being at like Ben Schwartz's like Goodbye New York, his going away from New York party.
Wow.
He had like a big long show at UCB and it was like, Ben Schwartz, see you later.
For some reason I thought you were a Michigan dude.
Oh no, well because I work at the Onion, some people sort of think that I must have been through come from the Midwest, but no, I'm actually from San Diego originally.
Wait, what?
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Really?
California.
Yeah. Welcome back,
guys. Yo, what's up? I'm
from
San Diego.
You mean the weed smoking comedy guys from San Diego?
Yeah, can you believe it? Yeah, it was really, and in New York, everyone was like, "Oh, Klinman, you're so laid back," like, and it made me really like a special guy. Guys, I'm from San Diego, And then we come here, and now nobody cares. No, everybody's from fucking.
Did you have a guy in New York, a delivery guy?
Dude,
where'd you get
New
your weed?
York weed? So, and this is, I feel terrible because I feel like it's just like the ultimate millennial take, and I feel bad about it. But I did like smoking weed better when it was illegal. Right.
When nobody's disagreeing.
and I don't know, but part of it was because in New York, I don't know I'm curious how you got your weed. First, I had a dude who you would call and there would be a voice message and you would say, "Hi, this is like Matt. I'd like tickets to the guest list, please." And then they would call you back. And my wife would constantly make fun of it because that's like tickets to the guest list makes no sense. If you have a ticket, then you aren't on the guest list. And if you're on the guest list, you don't need a ticket. That's the whole thing about going to an event.
Perfectly convoluted.
Yeah. And then a guy would come and you would like get in his car or whatever, and he would drive around the block and you would buy it. But then there was this anonymous app called Wicker. Did you ever use this service?
I never used it, but I remember
there was a service. It was just like different people were on like Wicker, which was like one of those services that like it was a chat, but then your chat would delete or whatever, and you could ask for weed. And they came and like it was so well branded. The graphic design was really good, and it was the first time I knew about like sort of like THC percentage and CBD percentage because they would list it on the thing, and they would have different strains, and it was great and it was awesome. But I do feel like. Yeah, that shit probably wasn't as high quality, but like the highest THC level for those, I would always like, because I was in my 20s and like, I want to get like fucked up. And so I would get like the highest THC level they had, which would be like 24%. Yep. And then now it's like insane. Now if I want like low THC level, I like, that's the like, I don't know, all we got is like 24%. Is that like what you.
Don't touch that canister in front of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just going to instantly destroy me. Poof.
Yeah, I remember my boyfriend was a big stoner, so he did all the ordering, and he had a guy who was named the White Whale, and he would come over with his backpack full of jewel cases.
Oh yeah.
And then he also had mushrooms and Molly and a bunch of stuff. So it was really exciting because he wasn't just a weed guy.
Yeah.
But then we also at the High Times offices had a guy who would just come through with your order, and it was great. It was like you get your lunch order, and you would also order up whatever you wanted, and
sick.
He would come through within he'd sell you an eighth at a time, which was really nice, and. Yeah, it was pretty great.
I guess I kind of was that guy for the Funny or Die office. I would like let everybody know when the weed guy was going to come to the office, and then people would put in orders.
It's so fun.
Like Jimmy John's?
Yeah.
Yes, like a Jimmy John. Yeah. Hey guys, what do you want from Jimmy John's?
Yeah.
What do you want from the Wicker Man?
Oh man, so fun. And now you're making weed shows. Like we got to get into it because you've got two things happening that we have to talk about.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you again. Thank you for having me to talk about these things. I thought that you guys would do.
Well, they're very good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
On making awesome stuff.
I really appreciate it. It's very hard to make things. You guys know it's like so hard, but then you can do it. Sometimes if you like work really hard or you try or you get really lucky, then like sometimes you get one through, and that's how I feel about these things. But but definitely high science.
On Max.
Yes, thank you. It's on Max. It's on Max. It's a discovery. Well, I'll tell you the story about this because it's crazy.
Yes, please, because it feels very loopy.
So it is like, and I like telling it, especially to people who are trying to make stuff and do stuff in this industry, because I think it is, at least in some ways, the more positive version of like a story that you hear a lot.
Yeah.
But where we pitched it 5 years ago.
I feel like I need to get my notebook
I
right
know,
now.
right? Yes, right. So here's how it works, guys. You pitched something 5 years ago.
We meaning you and Zach.
Me and Zach. So
Okay.
Zach Poitras is another guy who I worked with a lot. We're like also like best buds. We like officiated each other's weddings and shit like that. Like we've been working together. Did a lot of shows together at UCB and stuff. And he and I were at Funny or Die, and Funny or Die had done they had just like laid off all their staff or something like that. But we were still trying to pitch stuff with them, and they had just done a development deal with Science and Discovery for like a late night stoner block, because they knew that people like go, when do you watch Planet Earth? You like come home after a party or something and you like are still hungry. And so you picked up like some Jack in the Box or whatever. And so you want to like smoke and eat your Jack in the Box tacos and watch something.
Yeah, you need the soothing tones of David Attenborough to like make everything feel okay.
Right. So they were like, so what about this Planet Earth audience? Like, what if we tried to make something more specifically for them? I don't know. There was some exec there who really wanted to do a science weed comedy show. He was like, what would be our high science? Like literally like they gave us the title or whatever, but they did like like a bake off or whatever for pitches for like what a show that there would kind of be like their drunk history, sort of like whatever that would be for them. And so we came in and we pitched this idea of two like loser lab assistants who find a talking bong in the back of their lab. And if they want to learn about something, they smoke that thing out of the bong. And so like that was the concept. So like if you want to learn about the moon, you grab a little nug labeled the moon, you put it in the bong, you smoke the moon, and then you get high on the moon.
Moon rocks.
Yes, you smoke your moon rocks. You grind up your moon rocks and you put them in your little like crack burner. And then and then we like hallucinate real facts and real lessons and real shit about the moon, and we talked to like experts and shit like that, and like so that was sort of the concept. And then the Discovery liked our concept for it, and so they gave us a little money to make a sizzle reel for it. Which sizzle reel, or I guess like a pilot presentation, it's like a 10-minute version of what would be like a whole show.
Was it always going to be green screened like
yeah,
that?
totally.
Oh,
so we
great.
shot the whole thing in like the studio at Funny or Die, just like in the green screen studio. And we didn't have enough money to do, they were like, if you guys can write it, that would be great. And then they're like, we don't have the budget for anyone else to direct it. If you guys could direct it, that would be great. And then we don't have any budget for anyone else to be in it. If you guys could just be in it, just for like this little pilot presentation so that we can get the concept out, then that would be great. And we were like, yeah, sure, totally, whatever. And so we made this thing, and it just like was like way better than we thought it was gonna. Like it just like worked. It like was really cool, and it worked.
So
and
great.
We got this dude. One of our producers found this guy named John Boswell, who has this incredible YouTube channel that like everyone should check out if they haven't, called Melody Sheep. It's this dude, he basically like gives you like the history of the universe, or like the history of the moon, or the history of like how the solar system is going to evolve over the next 10 trillion years. Like he'll make a video about that, and he'll score it himself. He'll like make all these amazing 3D graphics and shit like that. These like, it's just like the sickest stuff to look at. And we kind of tracked him down and asked him if he wanted to help us make this thing, and he was down. So he also helped, he like edited it and put it all to like a beat, and like put these sick visuals in it. And like that was like kind of this missing component for, I think, this thing. And I don't know, it just came out so good. And so we were stoked. Our exec at Science Discovery was stoked. He was like, hell yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Thank you. Then he showed it to his boss, and his boss was the head of the network. And she was like, we would never show people smoking on air. Are you crazy?
What year was this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
which we all thought, we were like, of course everybody's smoking weed and it doesn't matter anymore. But this wasn't HBO. This was like ad supported Discovery Channel or whatever.
Mhm.
And they were like, I don't know. At the time they were shy about it. And they didn't feel comfortable with it. And so we were like, oh, dang. And then our exec was like fired immediately.
Oh, man.
And we were like, no. And we loved the project. And we were like, but I guess it's dead. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
But then I guess a few years went by. Some people who were at the network at the time who remembered it and loved it then, and credit to Funny or Die, they like kind of kept the light on for this project. I don't know how, but another exec there who had been there got more power. They started Discovery Plus, which was their streaming service. And they were like, I don't know, legalization had like moved across the country more, like people's attitudes had changed. Whatever it was, they felt like it was more possible now for them to show us smoking on air. And even though we weren't, we're smoking the moon, we're not even smoking weed. We're smoking like a scientific topic. We're not like, it's like fake still. Anyway, so they came back around and we were like, sure. And they were like, if you can get like a big celebrity attached, then we'll greenlight a little 6-episode, super low budget season. And then we got Paul Bettany attached, and which was crazy. We wrote him a really nice letter, and we're like, he was like, I mean, a top choice, like for us. Like,
why Paul Bettany specifically?
Literally specifically, we wanted someone British and with like that kind of like gravitas to it. And then he just seemed like we loved Master and Commander, and he was like the Darwin character in Master and Commander.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it just like felt like a really good, I don't know. We couldn't believe he said yes. We were like, oh, hell yeah.
It's so awesome. Sick. I had no idea that Paul Bettany was like a good time, because I think of him as like just such an intense, crazy actor. I think the first time I saw him was in the Angels and Demons or whatever.
Oh yeah, self-flagellating. Yes, totally.
Yeah, he just seems like a very intense. So it's so fun. Like his bong is just like such a joy.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, he was so cool too. He was like super into the project.
Oh, wait, isn't he married to Jennifer Connelly?
He's also married to Jennifer.
Did you meet Jennifer Connelly?
No, absolutely not. But we talked about her. He like brings, I don't know. Paul knows. He gets it. He like brings up all the time that like he's married to Jennifer Connelly. And he's like, I don't know how I did it. I don't know.
Well, he's also insane looking.
Is. Like, well, it's like, but he knows that like that if you fucking are married to Jennifer Connelly, you got to be doing something right. And
yeah.
So what does it look like from that pilot presentation that then enough time has passed that they can relook at it and be like, oh, we don't need to sell ads against this on the network or whatever. So here we are. So then do they come to you and they're like, what does this entire show look like for 6 episodes?
Yeah, sort of. And we'd had it like once we just knew to do more of what was like the sizzle reel. If you watched it, it's like, it is exactly the show pretty much. Like in some ways, like we were able to do some things better, but actually some things we did better in the sizzle reel because the way that we shot this show was we had 2 days to shoot 6 episodes of television all in front of a green screen because we had to save so much money for the visual effects for this show. Mm-hmm. And it's like the tiniest budget thing. And so if you watch the show, you'll see there's only 3, like there's 2 angles on us basically. Like it's just us because it's just us in front of a green screen, and we could do different setups of like floating or like walking, but like we just had to like move. And so we shot 3 episodes a day basically.
Scripted?
And yes. It was all like we had to rehearse it within an inch of our lives because Zach and I were scared that if we didn't know anything that everyone would be so mad at us because it was like our show and we had so little time to shoot everything. So when we wrote it and then we also were in it, so we like could like memorize it, so that was the other thing too. When it came down to it, it wasn't going to be us in the show even when we were going to make it because we just were like, I don't know, I'm not that I'm like a nice guy, but I'm not like a famous man, you know what I mean? Like I don't, it's
everything. They like one of the reasons that you always get a no is it's like, oh, we need someone attached to this.
Totally.
And then it's not a risk.
Right, exactly. Right. And so we had Paul Bettany, which helped. But then even for us, it was still like, we're not, Zach and I have been performing and doing stuff and every once in a while I get a roll on something, but we're not like big dudes or whatever, by any stretch. But as we were writing it, it just I don't know, it was weird to write it for somebody else. Like to make up characters to do it. For some reason, it made more sense that it was like the people who made the show who were super into science themselves.
And you already have the comedic chemistry. Like your relationship is so funny as a duo. And you
totally.
Can't cast that.
Yeah, so that was sort of the thing. And then, it really wasn't our call. We did the whole thing where they got submissions for other people. We went away for Christmas. And then when we came back, they were like, guys, we've decided who it's going to be. The production company and the network. And they were like, it'll be you guys. And we were like, what? Whoa.
Cool. Do you know I auditioned?
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I did. And then when I saw that it was you guys, I was like, Yes. Like, thank fucking God.
I'm so glad you auditioned for it. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad, like, because we knew some of the tape. I don't know. I didn't watch your tape. I should have watched your tape.
Oh, I don't think I nailed the Matt Klinman. So let's be serious.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did. What did you think when you auditioned for it?
I was jealous because it was called High Science, and I love science and I love weed. And then I was like, fuck. And then I saw Zach's name on it. I don't think I saw your name on whatever the breakdown was. And then I was like, oh, well, we follow each other on Instagram, so I'm happy he's getting to make it. And then it turned out that you were a part of it. And then I saw both of you on camera, and I was like, this is the best possible outcome of this. Like, you know what I mean?
Thanks, dude.
Because, like, I don't know, you two together on it, especially the first episode, which is the moon, if everyone wants to go check that one out. Though I think, like, one of the first things out of your guys' mouth is like, did we really land here? And I was like, thank you. Great. Let's talk about it, man. Like, what's real, what's not.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
well, so that was the thing, is we could just kind of like do what our dynamic as friends was for the show. And it like worked because all we do is talk about science. Like Zach and I are just constantly like texting each other New York Times science articles. We're like, and just like constantly talking about, like when I mean, you guys love science,
I'm a
right?
wicked,
yeah, right. So if we just like,
her family is a fishery scientist.
My dad, my grandmother, my sister are all fisheries scientists.
No kidding.
So I that's like my love language.
Whoa,
with
that's
my family.
awesome. Like for like NOAA or for
my grandmother was a professor of marine biology at McGill University.
Oh,
and my
wow.
dad was a fisheries scientist for the Canadian government and salmon and trout in Newfoundland, where I grew up. And my sister was a shark biologist who ended up in marine conservation in Washington.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I love everything about it. It's so everything.
Yeah. So my folks were both immunologists. Yeah. So my parents. So I was supposed to. It was from a young age. They were like, Matt, you will go into science or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I didn't.
And you did not. But now look at you.
I know. And then I came back around.
Now you're making them proud.
I know. Yeah. Well, I hope so. Yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
I'm actually making a show about life insurance.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah,
That's
we're
great.
both
yeah,
really
totally similar. Yeah, for sure. High life insurance. What if the person selling you life insurance is high?
Things would be better.
Yeah, probably. Oh man, you don't want this one, dude. This is a bad plan, dude. I'm sorry I even came here trying to sell you this, dude. You're cool, man. I can't sell you this scam insurance. Yeah, you're right. It'd be good.
It'd be so much better.
So you wrote all 6 episodes.
Yeah. So Zach and I, and then we Joe, another writer, Joe Randazzo, who was at the Onion back when we were. He was our like.
Oh, he was head writer at Midnight too.
Yeah, he was head writer at Midnight, and he was the editor in chief at the Onion when I first started there. He was like, and so when they wanted like someone who is a little. Zach and I also had babies during the course of the show. We both had babies. Thank you. But which was insane. But I guess they were like, we have to do it now, and we were like, are you sure? And then so we brought in someone who could like hold down the fort while we did that too. And so Joe was kind of a very senior level kind of writer who could like also make sure that everything wasn't going to fall apart when we had to take care of babies.
So when did you shoot this? Was it during the pandemic?
No, well, it was last February.
Oh, okay.
Last April. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then it was supposed to come out that summer. We did like a Shark Week episode because it was going to come out that summer, which was insane because then, or like it was just, there's so much like visual effects in the show and our budget was so low. So like with visual effects, it's like you can get it fast, but that costs a ton of money, or you can get it slower, but like or cheaper, but it'll take a lot more time. And so we didn't deliver it until like November. And so like that was too ambitious. But yeah, so we took like post was like 6 to 9 months for the show. Because like as you see, it's just all visual effects. It's just us like floating around in.
I do
CGI.
think that's the difference between one of the differences I would assume between your show making it all the way through to like it dropped on 4/20 of this year, which is so dope on what I think is the best streaming platform at the time, known as HBO Max.
Yeah,
like,
we were stoked, yeah.
But I also have heard a lot of bullshit people who were like, oh, I had the idea for a video game stone or something called High Score.
Right.
And I had and all of that. Like, was there a moment where they were pushing you in notes or anything to like, what's the difference? Like, how do we make this so unique that it's science, it's weed, but it's also like Paul Bettany is a twist, I guess.
I mean, I think the thing, I mean, like, like tons of people have like wanted to make a high science, and it's usually people just doing drunk history, but they're getting high instead of being drunk.
Right.
Like I think like there's even like web series and things that are called high science that are like that or whatever. But like the difference was, I don't know, our concept just, I mean, whatever, the title's fine. We like the title, but like the concept for us is this idea that you are getting high on the thing, and like that you're getting high on science. Like for us, it was like, this is your brain on science. And so like that frame of it for us, we weren't actually high when we shot the thing because we had to shoot 80 pages a day and it would have been impossible. But instead for us, it was like every choice, everything was like, what would it be like if our minds were consumed with just this topic and all we could think about was this topic? And like, so that I think was the lens that we saw everything through. And then the other thing for us was we really wanted to, I mean, you're doing is just science communication. We had two really amazing researchers too. And for us, it was like, we want the show to have things in it that you haven't seen before, or like, even like being relatively fluent in like, the kind of the general like the science, the pop science kind of stuff that's out. We wanted to really try to like, I don't know, like break new story, or I don't know, like have things in the show.
The salmon in the trees.
Yes, exactly. Like totally. So like that was like a moment. So we have our tree episode, and in the tree episode, we talk about how how trees in the Northwest eat salmon, which is crazy. And they have these studies where they show that trees that are near streams that salmon come up, and where bears take the salmon out of the woods and munch on them and then drop the salmon in the soil, the trees there do significantly better than in areas where there aren't salmon, which is a major argument for why you should have a healthy salmon fishery.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like a major thing. This is in Alaska. When I learned about that because I was in Alaska on like a family vacation, and we went to this cool little like nonprofit where they like, they like milk the salmon or whatever. They like put the eggs together and they send them out or whatever in order to like up the salmon populations. And they were studying the study, but the whole study was like basically kind of was like an accident. Like these people, they were doing a study on salmon, and they just kept throwing the carcasses on one side of the river because that they were harvesting and doing it. And then when they would come back, they noticed that it seemed to be healthier on that side of the river than on the other side. So then they started they changed the study or did a new study, and they just had like students like fling salmon carcasses to one side of the river versus the other to sort of see if it would make a difference, and it did. But yeah, so shit like that. Or there's one that my favorite one in our Shark Week one, which will be coming out in Shark Week. We have one secret episode of the show that is going to come out during Shark Week, but is that sharks came up with teeth. Basically, sharks invented teeth.
I love that.
Yeah, like you think about sharks and teeth, like you're like, oh yeah, sharks are the ones with the big teeth, but actually before sharks there were no teeth. The first, and it's like proto sharks. It's not like whatever actual sharks, but like things that like would become sharks. They were the first animals to evolve teeth at all. And then that changed the whole game. That changed the whole ocean like ecosystem, because it had been, I don't know if you guys know the history of the oceans, that it was ruled by.
I know all of it.
Oh, cool. Then you know that the oceans were ruled by cephalopods, basically. Mm-hmm. The oceans were ruled by like ammonites and ammonites, which look like little nautilus and are soft-bodied, but have like a little shell on them. Think of a nautilus, right? And the whole ocean was just filled with those. And then these little pesky dudes came along and evolved teeth, which allowed them to eat those flimsy shells. And then they evolved into sharks. And then for the next millennia, sharks ruled the earth, and sharks ruled the ocean because they figured out teeth, and that like changed the game. And then not only did they invent them, but they came from their skin.
Yeah. The denticles,
mm-hmm. Which is so crazy. I knew about denticles, but I guess that like the teeth evolved onto the skin or something, you know what I mean? That like, or something like that. But the skin moved to the mouth, and then the little rough patches got bigger and bigger, and then that became teeth. That's crazy. It's
wild. What did you smoke for that one?
Good question. That one, yeah. Well, sharks. Yeah, we smoked you'll see. This episode it's like a Scrooge. It's like a Christmas Carol.
Oh,
but I play like a Scrooge who wants to kill all the sharks on Earth, and so I smoke the true meaning of Shark Week. It's Shark Week Eve, and I have to learn the true meaning of Shark Week,
That's
which is
beautiful.
that we need to respect and protect sharks. And I'm visited by ghosts of sharks past, present, and future.
Oh my God. This is truly the most exciting episode. I have a shark tattoo for my sister. I'm so excited to see this.
What kind of shark?
This is a blue shark.
Oh, I love blue sharks.
Yeah.
They're the ultimate shark. They're kind of like, I mean, they're like the scrappiest
They're like the
sharks.
best shark.
Yeah, totally.
Great whites too. Are pretty,
Yeah, totally.
They're
But
all
like
right.
blue sharks are just like the workhorse of sharks. They're wherever you go in the ocean, if you throw anything overboard, there's going to be a blue shark there to eat that sucker
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so exciting.
Whoa. I mean, this feels like an appropriate place to transition since you two are connecting on sharks to another connection that you both have.
Oh,
Right. I
dude.
feel like we could talk for hours about all of this stuff.
This is, yes. Thank you for letting me come and just talk for hours about
No,
this. shit
it's
that I've
the
been
best
working
time.
on. Yeah, no, because, well, that's the thing. You make things like this and it's like your whole life and you're like so obsessed and you just want to tell people who would like these things to check these things out because I like made it for you guys. It was like,
Yeah.
fucking, if you like science and you like just, and like, yeah, you don't even have to be high to watch that show. It's like, it's just kind of like the spirit of like a science show for adults. Like where,
Yeah.
you know, like,
With the DNA of like Bill and Ted.
totally,
a
yeah,
little bit,
right,
right?
yeah, yes. We can say it's like Bill and Ted meets Bill Nye is what we sort of say.
Yeah. It's so good.
But thank you guys for checking it out and for digging it. That's sick.
Everyone needs to check it out. Michael share his Max password if you don't have Max, right?
Yeah, I'll give 3 people who DM and follow Weed and Grub's Instagram my Max password.
Oh, nice, generous.
Yeah,
Sweet.
I'll let you know. It starts with a capital M,
Okay.
ends with a number.
Oh,
Wow.
do you have a system
I
for
do.
like for different passwords for
Yeah.
each? Yeah, I have a system.
100%.
Yeah.
The only one I can never remember, iTunes.
Your iTunes
I have to reset
password?
iTunes every time I try and subscribe. Anyway, we're here to talk about your next project, Matt.
Well, so I was like, fuck, I would love
Sorry.
to tell Glazer about this show. And then also I was like, oh, and his fucking co-host wrote this article about this other thing that I worked on. So I have another weed show. It's like, if you don't care about science, I guess, but you also have an Audible subscription. If you have Audible, I wrote this other weed show that was supposed to come out a year ago, but it involves Russian themes. And so Audible held it because of it just seemed insensitive to launch a stoner weed comedy about the Russian mob at right when Russia invaded Ukraine. And we were like, yes, that makes sense. And you should hold on to the show until we feel like it's appropriate to have this. And then it ended up also coming out 420 of this year. But it's inspired by real things. And one of the things that it's inspired by is also a story, something that Mary Jane, you covered in an incredible piece for Rolling Stone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was the genius story. I think it's called the oligarch. I can't even remember what the headline was. They came up with such a good headline, but
The oligarch and the weed company?
the oligarch who blew up his $164 million and ended up dead in Moscow. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much the
It was
thing.
a wild story that I actually was sent the lawsuit by someone who was like trying to fuck over the 2 tech bros who were at the sort of center of the whole thing.
Okay.
Ari and Gabe, who were these 2 like 20-something tech bros who, if no one's read it, we'll drop a link in the show notes. It's a
You should
crazy
read this.
story.
It's just a crazy story.
It's
The
a
like
crazy-
real life story is crazy.
Yeah, it was basically like these 2 young guys who were interested in crypto and they were looking for, a way in to make a bunch of money. And they were connected with this Russian oligarch who was looking to build a vertically integrated cannabis company to, I think, launder some of his aluminum mine fortune that he had amassed. And they blew up 164 million of his fortune and he ended up dead. And there was this crazy lawsuit because their head of security and who had then ascended to the CEO ended up being this sort of like Machiavellian freak show. And
Which is insane.
yeah, and there were like so many. What is Mark saying?
The oligarch and the marijuana fund.
The Oligarch and the Marijuana Fund. Thank you, Mark, is the title of the article. But like there were so many pieces to it. There was, the fact that they fucked over hemp farmers in the Sierra Valley and they
insane.
were an insane work environment which was toxic to women in the office. And they were like trying to go to these trade shows, which the first episode of your thing is at Hall of Flowers. Like we were at that Hall of Flowers. So we can get into it. This is a little all over the place. But for anyone listening, like the story in Rolling Stone is like just one facet of this very huge sort of iceberg of a cannabis disaster.
Yes.
And I was really excited to work on that story, but also like I feel like I just managed to like scratch the surface, and there's so much more to it.
It seems.
So how much more do you know? Because I feel like you had inside information.
We like, and I should be very clear, like that's just one of the things that inspired this show. It's not, right. And like, because there are other similar. The thing is like cannabis, and it's interesting now, and you guys are a bit in this world, right? Or I mean, you guys are absolutely in this world, but I'm curious if my observation you guys would share, which is that around that time, like 2018, 2019, there was a huge cannabis boom, and especially like it felt like kind of inspired by tech, like kind of inspired by the tech boom. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of people who were in tech or like adjacent or like kind of like early crypto kind of people, that same energy was going into the green rush of cannabis. And it wasn't clear that all these people sort of had the best intentions or like were the right people to be stewards of this precious flower and, exposing that flower to capitalism. And so instead they were kind of doing it in that way. And then it's been interesting, I think, even since we sort of talk to people about that company and ones similar to it and like that world, I think that there's been a lull. It's like it's kind of like crashed since then. I'm curious what your sort of take is. Yeah.
California cannabis is on fire. I actually wrote another piece for Rolling Stone about how the small farms are collapsing in Northern California and everything because of regulation and a glut of legal product reaching the market all of a sudden when there was just way too much legal cannabis grown, which absolutely tanked prices. And so put a ton of small farmers out of business because they couldn't even grow a pound for what it was worth on the market. Like it cost them more to grow a pound than they could sell it for at a certain point because these huge companies had come like, these massive farms in San Luis Obispo were growing like 100 acres of weed and then just flooding the market with it. So that along with crazy regulations and like insane permit fees and packaging requirements that change all the time. So you're just spending your money to just keep up and dealing with the Fish and Wildlife Department and dealing with the Bureau of Cannabis Control. Like there are so many spidery capillaries of the bureaucracy that they immediately tried to impose onto farmers.
Right.
These are farmers. These are not bureaucrats or office workers or people who know how to do most of this shit. And you're asking them to do not one aspect of it, but like all of this crazy stuff just to bring their product to market. So like when someone like the Genius Fund, came in and they were like, we know how to do all of, that sort of stuff, the money, the capital, the permitting, all that kind of stuff. And then but they didn't know anything about the actual weed,
right?
Which is the crazy thing. They founded a weed company they didn't know anything about cannabis,
right? And then probably also they didn't actually know how the bureaucracy stuff worked either.
Well, no one did at that time, right?
Because it was just being started, so you couldn't. There was no way to know. It was like an impossible situation.
Yeah,
but so there were sort of stories that we were kind of hearing, and like we had written the whole thing before a lot of the crazier shit in your story, like him, like how the oligarch dies, like things like that. We had already Russian suicide. Yeah, we had already written the whole thing before any of that. We didn't even know, to be honest, when we first conceptualized the idea. The whole idea was that my co-creator who I wrote the show with had worked just as a copywriter for a couple brands like this and was like, these are crazy, like what's going on? And because it's an all cash business, there would be a lot of security around the high up execs, which is why it's so funny that like the head of security then became the CEO. Mm-hmm. So it probably was just because like that guy was there and like at a certain point you just like hire the person who's also in the room or whatever. And so we were talking about how, because it's an all cash business, just seemed like, they're always afraid that they could get kidnapped, that like some cartel would come, someone from the cartel would come, you're stepping on their toes. This is, business stepping on the toes of something that had been a huge black market business. So what happens when, those two forces run up against each other? And like, those are for real fucking people, like, whatever, in Humboldt or whatever, Murder Mountain, like, shit like that.
Yeah.
The cartels and like, these are real people and real shit fucking happens.
Yeah.
And so we were like, what if some dumb fuck, naive, ours was like an American CEO, just like a silver spoon in his mouth, like trust fund kid wants to start a vertically integrated cannabis company, but steps on the wrong toes and then gets kidnapped. And so we were like, that'd be a funny story if like the cartel came in, kidnapped him, and then installed one of their own. But we didn't love the idea of going with the cartel. Felt like a little played out, and then it just didn't feel like, fresh. And we were like, what's like a mob that nobody would have any problems with, a non-controversial mob. And so we were like, oh, well, the Russians could be the ones to do this. Really, truly not even realizing that was actually part of like a lot of these real stories was Russian money. As we started researching and getting into it.
Yeah, Sacramento and all this.
Yes, right. Yeah. Crazy. So we like didn't realize that was a huge aspect of it. And then we like learned a whole bunch about how the Russian mob works and how Russia is. And anyway, so that's like why we had Russian stuff. But what was crazy is like one of the main themes of our show is kind of what happens in Russia, like how Russia works. And there's this awesome documentary actually that I watched that kind of like, I watched a bunch of documentaries and read a bunch of stuff, but there's this one called Operation Odessa. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It was on Netflix for a while. Hopefully it still is. You 100% have to watch this documentary. It is one of those documentaries where I think it was like some CIA guy, some documentarian must have been having drinks with some retired CIA guy and was like, hey, what's the craziest story from when you were in the CIA? And that guy was like, you know what? This is the craziest story. And that's what the documentary is this dude. This is a total sidetrack. But this guy who was involved with the Russian mob kind of moved here, basically figured out that he could hook up the Pablo Escobar like cartel with motorcycles, helicopters, jet engines from the Soviet Union. Because when the Soviet Union collapsed, they had been all these factories that were state run had then suddenly were no longer state run, and they were going to be run by a capitalist market. It just didn't make any sense. So they were just these factories that didn't have industries for them to sell into anymore. And you could just show up in Russia in like the early 90s and say, hey, I would like to buy like basically like a military helicopter. And they would be like, oh yeah, go to the helicopter factory. And I'm sure they would want your money. And you could buy for cheap. This dude bought jet engines from like what would have gone onto Russian fighter jets. He bought just the engines and then he brought them back to Florida and he mounted them onto motorboats. And then they used those hyper fast speedboats to traffic cocaine into the United States, going faster than anyone could like catch them.
Amazing.
Operation Odessa.
And like that's like, I'm trying not to even spoil the craziest shit about this documentary, but it's nuts. But basically what happened was the Russian prison system, there was such an extensive organization within the Russian prisons because they jailed so many people and so many people for so many reasons that in order to survive, people made this big organization translated as the Thieves-in-Law, this big organization within the Russian prison system. And when the government fell, there was this huge vacuum for just any institution to take over. And because the Russian mob was such a rigid, strong institution, they could then take over just regular factories, businesses, the government of Russia, because they had a parallel, basically government in waiting that had developed inside Russian prisons. And then that's why Russia is how it is because people who were once criminals running things like that, and then kind of with the KGB, like another parallel structure to the government took over, and then that's who runs it. And the theory there, the kind of the thing that like they operated under was that basically if you wanted something, you take it. If you want to have, there's a Russian, motorcycle factory. Some guy runs it who was a functionary during the Soviet Union or whatever. He's a pushover. I bet if you go over there and just act tough, he'll just give it to you. And if he doesn't, then you can just kill him and take the factory.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works. And so, but then it just like, it's so reductive and stupid. This is like a huge country with like lots of history and there's so much more to it, but also they wanted Ukraine. So they thought like they could just fucking take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Fucking wild.
Yeah.
Putin was the head of the KGB.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Essentially. Yeah. Yes. Or I think like, yes. And then it became another agency, but yes.
Did you know that there's a hockey league that's just like entirely oligarchs? Did you know about that?
Well, because of the guys. Bosov was like
Bosov
like helped organize it and shit like that.
Yeah, it was just like all the oligarchs show up and lace up and do some billionaire hockey. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. No, it's a while. But so I don't know. The cannabis industry, I mean, you guys are kind of hanging out with cannabis industry people.
Yeah.
How does it feel these days? Like, does it feel like
it's on fire?
Really?
Yeah. Everyone's screaming because it's all going down. Like the airship, the Hindenburg is crashing.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild as far as the, the people who are in the regulated market, people in the traditional market are like just chuckling and watching it, smash into the side of the mountain, whatever, mixed metaphors. But like, yeah, it's not going well if you're in the regulated market, except for a few people who just have a lot of money and they're kind of waiting it out. But like all the little guys are really suffering, and it's hard.
That sucks.
We have some friends who are like the Puffco Peak that's in front of you there. He's doing great because he's non-plant touching. And like all of the sort of accessories for this, because consumers are having a good time with like legal weed and stuff. So like that part, and people who are making accessories and smoking, devices and stuff, I think they maybe are doing okay, I hope. But generally people who are like actually growing and trying to sell flower are it's hard right now.
That's such a sad phrase, non-plant touching.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad to be someone who doesn't touch the plants, right? I don't know, just in general. If I was a no plant touching person, I would.
Right.
I like touching plants.
So, but we should talk a little bit more about Blood Weed, though, because it's like you've got incredible talent.
Oh yeah,
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, Maria Bakalova.
Yeah,
we have, and this dude Clayton English, who plays like a rapper in it, who's like this amazing. I don't know if he was like a stand-up dude who has just like an incredible.
I know him well.
Oh yeah, he's great. Yeah. So he's plays like a Ja Rule rapper type who co-founds the company.
What's his name? Cole Fusion.
Cole Fusion. Yeah,
so
yeah.
Cole Fusion.
And then we have our Russian guy is this dude Hugo Armstrong. And then we have a bunch of like UCB people who are amazing, like Zach Cherry and London Parham, who we were just talking about, and like Aaron Jackson is, I don't know. We just have like this awesome cast, and it's like a very fun. It's like a full cast Audible show sort of jam where it's like
a good radio play. It's a fun. It's a really great production. It's very.
Thank you so much.
Pillow is touching things. Yeah, it's very satisfying. Like I don't know how did it work for you being in the editing room and with all the sound mixing and stuff, because it's really audibly. I mean, I know it's on Audible and obviously it should be good in your ears, but it was like particularly nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so I had done a few audio fiction things in the past. And so we've like learned a few lessons about like how to, like, to me, it's because audio fiction, I don't know if you guys listen to a lot of audio fiction, but it can be just like a little bit of a higher hurdle to like get into it versus like a conversational podcast or like even like a NPR reported podcast for some reason. So I spent like a lot of time trying to like think about why. And I think so like whenever I make one of these audio things, I try to like in my mind, I'm like, how do we like reduce the amount of like mind friction that you have, and like basically the amount of like effort that it takes to like really focus on one of those shows. And you can't entirely, because it just is more information. Like it's just like a high information density kind of thing, a little bit more than like a conversational podcast, I guess, just because you're used to, I don't know. It's easier to cook and listen to you guys than it would be probably to cook and listen to Bloodweed, unless you were like unless you were like already in it.
It's hard to show story audibly, right?
Totally. Yeah. So there's just a lot coming at you. So there's a few things that like we figured out that I believe in for it. And one is like having a narrator really helps, because it means that you can like zone out just a little bit and someone will tell you like, here's the scene, here's why. Like the who, what, where of a scene can be set up by like someone's voiceover. Otherwise you have this thing in audio shows where it's like every scene starts with people being like, wow, what a cool office you have. And there's two of you and I like your shirt. Like it like sort of like you have to play this little game to get into it. But if you just have a narrator, you can just be like, so there I was and still stuck in the Russian prison and they were about to beat me. And then here's the scene. It's like easier to set it up. And then the other thing is, having like really nice sound design, but that isn't like too crazy, but is like just like pinpoints it enough. And we had a couple really good sound editors who'd worked on like King of the Hill and done a bunch of like stuff for Mike Judge's company. This dude, Bobby Maxton and Glenn Lucas is like these two editors helped us, and then we had this dude. Then we got really lucky with this musician named Michael Cheever, who did all of our scoring and also wrote all the like rap songs that are in the show. Like so I don't know. So we just had a bunch of really good collaborators to help us make this thing, and everybody was in it. With this one, we did like deep COVID. We like wrote it just like me and Dan just calling each other and like talking it out, and then we recorded it during COVID. The other thing that I like to do is try to get as much as possible actors together at the same time. time, which sometimes in audio shows you can't do just because of scheduling or whatever. But I think it helps a lot if you get performers like together, ideally in the same room, or because it was COVID, like on the same Zoom, helps a lot.
Oh, I wonder if it was maybe easier to get everyone on Zoom together, right?
Yeah, it was easier.
You know?
And especially during COVID, everybody was excited, to, like wanted to do something. Haley was dope too. Haley Joel Osment, he like also had his own home studio. He's like a musician.
Oh, wow.
And so he like we would send people like a recorder and stuff like that. And he was like, no, I got it. And he always had his own setup.
He's really funny in the show.
He's great. He's awesome.
I didn't know he was a funny guy.
Yeah,
but he's so funny in the show.
He's like, well, that's the thing. I've seen him in a bunch of comedy stuff because he's like What We Do in the Shadows, and he was in The Boys, and he's like always hilarious.
Oh,
and
that's
like,
right.
Yeah, but like you kind of are
course.
like, oh right. And Silicon Valley, like, oh yeah, Haley Joel Osment is like great. I love him, and he's hilarious. He should be in more things.
Yeah.
And so we were like, dude, we should have Haley Joel Osment. Also, his voice, he kind of sounds like a SoCal like stoner kind of guy, and so we just felt like it would fit.
Did you then take the finished scripts and all of this cast to Audible? Like, how did it work to get a weed story on a big place?
Totally, yeah. So, and I should say, like, in general, the way you get stuff made is you just pitch as much shit as you can all the time, if you can, and like come up with tons of shit. And so this one was, because you just never know why something will get picked up and why it won't,
Or something that started 5 years ago.
Yeah,
is now
exactly.
on
Could pop up
Max.
again. Yeah. So this one was Dan Abramson, who I wrote it with. He had just sold something with Funny or Die to Spotify that was with Kevin Bacon, which was like a cool, that's the last degree of Kevin Bacon on Spotify, which is funny. I wrote on that with him, but he had like pitched that to Audible and they ended up going with Spotify, but the exec at Audible was like, hey, if you ever got something else, come at me. And then Dan was like, to me, I think he felt like he was like that too. Like this exec said, if I had anything, I should pitch something. Like, let's come up with something. And so then we were like, okay. And then he had just done these gigs working for this weed company. And so we came up with this thing and then we pitched it to this exec. And it was the same sort of thing, dude. We pitched to this exec. He was like, yeah, this is great. I love this. It's great. And then between him greenlighting it and then like their lawyers being done, he was like, he quit the company or whatever.
Right, of course.
And so we were like,
Always.
oh no, our project is going to die. But thankfully, when it fell out of legal, another exec had just started there who had been someone who I had worked with in New York before, a producer, this guy Josh Poole, who had worked at Above Average,
Yeah, sure.
which was another like kind of like digital era New York thing. He had become our exec and he was just great to work with. He was like someone who had worked with before a bunch. And so he kind of like helped us push along. But we had to, basically we sold the scripts for it. And then they were like, exactly kind of like you said, if they liked the scripts, they would greenlight it to production. And so we wrote the whole series, 10 episodes of it. And then they liked it. So they greenlit it to production and gave us a budget and stuff like that too.
Wow. I just had the
hire
image in
people
my head
on.
of you like swinging through the jungle on vines and like letting go of one before you grab the next, and having to like always trust that the next vine is going to be within reach.
That
But
is
who the hell
exactly
knows?
how it works in this industry.
Yeah.
That's exactly. But isn't that how it feels always doing any writing and creative pursuits?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be a series of miracles to make
Yeah,
anything
and you're
happen,
always
right?
just trying to grab the vines, then you don't know which ones are going to slip and which ones are going to like hold you and which ones will work and which ones won't.
Sometimes you get the God vine though, or
Yeah.
some fucking awesome
The
vine.
God vine?
That's what DMT, ayahuasca, I think they call the God vine.
God, vine.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
Well, and then because I think I don't know if it's true, but they discovered, I don't know, who knows how long ago the first humans like started doing ayahuasca and stuff like that, but that jaguars had been gnawing on it first and they followed jaguars. Did you guys know? Do you know this story?
Say more.
So we kind of looked up into this for High Science because we were thinking about, we were trying to dial in how stoner we should go. And one of them was like, what if we did something on animals getting high? Like just like an episode on that. Cause there's tons of examples of that are all amazing and interesting. But one of them is that jaguars in South America would chew on, I believe, the God vine, one of the vines that is used as an active ingredient in ayahuasca. Jaguars will chew on it and you'll see them sort of like, rolling around and having like visions or whatever.
Whoa.
But I think one of the theories is that, the people who were native to that area, who were in the jungles during that time, would see jaguars tripping out and then put it together with after eating this vine. And then they started messing with that vine. And then eventually it became like the stew that became like ayahuasca or whatever. That's like one theory that I've heard.
Fucking awesome.
Fucking awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So crazy.
The Jaguars were gnawing on the God vine, and we were
Wild.
like, "Ooh, why don't we gnaw a little bit? Why don't we get a little piece of that?"
Little snap.
Season 2. High science. Let's go.
So Bloodweed, everything is available on Audible.
On Audible, yeah.
Right
Which
now.
you can get like a free trial of and listen to it for like a month, and then you can. Or you look, there's plenty of good audiobooks on Audible. Do you guys like audiobooks?
The last one I enjoyed was Bubble. Jordan Morris,
Oh,
friend of
yeah,
the show.
totally. Yeah,
Love
that's a
Bubble.
great show. Yeah, that's another good audio fiction jam for sure. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I like audio fiction.
We
We have
probably
to.
should wrap.
But I also have a pitch
Okay.
to everyone listening. So I can either do it before Buds of the Week or after Buds of the Week.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Go
I'm
for
going to
it.
do it now, and then we can do Buds of the Week and wrap up.
Okay.
If you liked this episode and you like weed, it is so important to support things like blood, weed, and high science so that more things that you love that have to do with weed get made. So if you don't have Max, get Max. If you don't have Audible, get Audible. Support Matt, support his shows so that more things can be made by people like Matt. It's the only way to
Please.
prove to this Hollywood system that it's a viable thing to put money into.
Totally.
And so it's so important.
And like I have to say too, everyone who worked on both of these shows, I think like put extra love into them because they liked that they were not only that they were weed sort of things, but also that they weren't like putting weed down or making weed seem like it was just for losers or whatever. That like, I mean, high science, like the whole point of it is that it's the dumbest possible joke, getting high on something so that we can make the smartest possible show. You know what I mean? Like that's like to me, like you want to do really smart comedy really dumb, or you want to do really dumb things really smart, like right, that's how I've always like kind of lived. Like The Onion is like that. Like
I mean, that's our dynamic. I say out of pocket dumb shit, and then Mary Jane's like, well, here's the facts.
Yes,
like,
yeah,
I'm just thinking about
totally.
like most of the stoners that I know are the most incredible. They have the most incredible minds.
Yes.
Because they explore parts of their brains that a lot of people don't.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that weed like unlocks part of their cerebellums and allows them to have like, bizarre high thoughts that might not always make sense.
But also like deep introspective.
Super fucking interesting and cool.
Yes.
Brilliant.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I would not be who I mean, weed for sure, but also, mushrooms teach you things. Like, there are many like mantras and things I live by that came, that were given to me by the mushroom gods.
By the mushroom.
Yeah. By the fungus, by the god fungus.
Oh man, I'm full fungus touching.
Oh yeah. Good,
Yeah.
dude. You got to touch fungus.
Well, let's do Buds of the Week.
Let's do some
before
buds.
we get out of here. So our Buds of the Week, we just shout out someone that we want our listeners to check out, someone that's doing good in the world, or someone that you're just interested in like highlighting because you like their work, or it could be yourself. You can be your own Bud of the Week if you want to.
That's nice.
You want to go first, Mike? Because you have yours pulled up?
Yeah, I'll go first. Matt, you want to go third?
Sure.
Okay. My Bud of the Week this week is Barney at Barney Has the Blueprint on Instagram. I've known Barney for a very long time, and he does have the blueprint, especially in the weed world. The second time we met, I was on my way.
Sorry.
I was on my way to get a. Are you playing your It's the Mayo for me
I'm trying to pull up my Bud of the Week.
Are you plugging your
I'm trying to
Instagram
sandbag
underneath my
you.
Bud of the Week? Well, follow Mary Jane at It's the Mayo, and also follow Barney at Barney has the
Sorry,
Blueprint.
Barney.
So the second time Barney and I met, I was on my way in Echo Park to get a haircut. I get a knock on my window. I turn, and that's when Barney was at Mota, and he just handed me a joint through my window at a stop sign and said, "Later, Glazer," and I drove off.
Oh my
and
God.
since then, man, he's only climbed higher and higher, become more and more of an influence in the weed game. Everybody loves this man, and if you have a chance to smoke with Barney, I highly suggest it. So follow Barney at Barney Has the Blueprint.
Wow. That's a great Bud of the Week, Mike.
Pro shit.
Sorry, I interrupted. My Bud of the Week is Nathan Colisio, who is the head of Rose Los Angeles, which is one of the coolest cannabis companies in the space. And I had the pleasure of chatting with him for a profile that I'm writing for the arts and culture issue of High Times magazine. And he started out as a screenwriter doing stand-up, and then he moved into weed because, as he said, he was like, I just didn't want a live audience or any critics anymore, but I still wanted to be creative. And he was like, I think that I can do that in cannabis. And they make these incredible infused Turkish delights. I don't know if you've had Rose Delights, and they're working with some of the craziest chefs like Dominique Crenn and like the Chez Panisse people, and they're just making wild infusions with things that you couldn't even imagine being delicious and unedible, but then like lemon and sumac and black sesame and salted plum. And anyway, I can't say enough good stuff about them. So check out Rose if you're in California. You can buy them at any dispensary, and then I think they're shipping to all states with their hemp brand. And Nathan's just the coolest guy. And I will post a link to the piece when that comes out. It's just, they're great people. And they're all artists. Like everyone at that, like from the farmer on up, like their design of the packaging, everyone there is just a super creative person. And I think that is something that I miss in legal weed. Like they are snuffing a lot of the creativity out of it. So, keep weed weird. And that's what they're doing over there.
Butt of the week, Matt.
Yeah, well, I feel like I should shout out the Writers Guild of America is on strike right now, and I do feel like, because I'm like promoting a show that is on like an actively struck network, I'm like, but I should also mention personally, I am on strike. I'm in the WGA. That show is a WGA show, and the WGA right now, you can find us picketing out in front of all sorts of studios and things like that in Los Angeles. I don't know if you guys have talked about the strike at all on the show or anything like that, or if your audience is interested. But I was like just talking to a friend from San Francisco this weekend who came down, and he was like, "Oh yeah, are you guys? What's going on with the strike?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought everyone knew about this." And I thought everybody, because like in LA and New York, I think everybody does, but like there's like we're on strike. Like the Writers Guild of America is on strike right now, and we just like the Directors Guild just signed an agreement, and so I think that we're in this like tenuous little moment right now where it's like unclear whether or not we're gonna like get everything that we need in order to like survive. And the vine to vine like aspect of this industry, we're trying to make it so it's not so crazy. So I don't know. I just wanted to shout out making the Writers Guild of America is on strike. It's a thing that's very important to a lot of people who make cool things, and so I hope people sort of check it out and support us and shout down people who on Twitter are trying to like it's like there's like insane people always being like that.
I mean, you arrived here wearing your name tag from striking.
I think that's why I thought about it when you were like shout out a buddy of the week, and I was like, oh right, I should probably talk about the fucking strike, man, because we're fucking on strike.
What'd you write on your sign?
I have only written, because the truth about the signs, a lot of the signs aren't very, it's hard to come up with a good sign.
I feel like at this point, they've nailed every sign.
The only one that I came up with that I was like, okay, I'll write this one down was Prime same day deliver my residual check was one that I wrote.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah.
Bezos is a listener. So,
yeah. Oh, good. So Jeff, dude, just pay us a little bit of your money, dude.
Come on, billionaires.
Did you see that he put that on like a maiden on his boat?
Isn't it his girlfriend?
Isn't that insane? I actually can't. I've like been like trying to think about how you can even get to the point in a relationship with somebody where that makes sense to do at all, even if you are very rich. I don't know. Do you think that would be cool?
I don't know, man. Like a self-portrait, I guess, is so hack. So,
but isn't he like he's just a 12-year-old boy trapped in that fucking body and brain, right?
Boy.
Like it just seems like so juvenile.
Yeah. He's just a little boy.
What a fucking lunatic. Well, honk for the strikers when you drive past them. I always like try and beep.
Please honk, dude. You gotta honk.
Give them support.
Last plugs, please. All your socials and everything.
Oh yeah, you just find me at Matt Klinman. I don't, you know me, I don't love social media. It makes me very sad and stuff like that. But I try to use them to promote. But Twitter, I guess I'm more active on, even though it's the sadder of them. But I have a long-standing dislike of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, so I tend to use it at least a little bit more than Instagram. But you can also find me at Matt Klinman at Instagram. Just because I think, I don't know if it'll make it, but Zach, my co-creator, has a lamp business.
Yes, he does.
I would love for you guys to put a link to his lamp business in the notes too. We had talked about this before.
Oh my gosh.
So we should plug it if we're going to share his lamps.
Okay, let's plug those lamps really fast. Mary Jane, I'm pulling them up.
So Zach Poitras, my co-creator of High Science, a long time ago started making these flush lamps.
Okay.
And he takes, the part of a toilet, specifically urinals, but I've seen other ones that use the same thing where it's like a hard flusher, like a lever flusher. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like
not the handle on just a regular bathroom
not
toilet?
Like on like a regular toilet. Like if you go to like a restaurant or and it's like
an industrial
totally. Plunger kind of flusher. Mm-hmm. He makes lamps where those are the on and off switch.
Oh, no way. That's so fucking rad.
They're amazing.
They're flush lamps, the thing is you worry like, will it be as satisfying as I want it to be?
Oh, fantastic!
And it is. Like he puts in like a pretty big clicker for it to like plunge against, for it to like give you a pretty satisfying like a chunk when the lamp turns on.
Wait, look from the Weed and Grub account.
Yeah.
I wrote incredible in 2021 about him.
So it's been on the Weed and Grub radar for a few years.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so Zach makes these flush lamps, and I'm trying to get him to make another batch. He's got to make another batch. He's like riding on his last batch. He's got to get back into it. So yeah, good. Yeah, flush lamps.
Wow.
Flush lamps too. Oh man, you're so rad. Thank you for joining us.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. Truly, like, I just meet these projects. I'm like, oh fuck, I need the people who would like these things, who I made it for, to check it out. And like, you guys are like exactly the people who I like these two people. I'm like made this for fucking Glazer and Mary Jane. I like made these things, so I hope they should check them out. And so thank you guys for so much for checking them out and for having me on and getting to speak to them to your audience.
Freaking awesome. Thank you so much. It is for us, and it's truly for everyone who listens. I know so many people who are going to be so geeked to like check out both of those projects and everything that you do. So thank you so
Thank you guys.
much.
Yeah, so High Science on Max and Bloodweed on Audible.
And come back.
I would
when you
love
have
to
more
come
stuff
back
to talk
honestly,
about.
anytime. If
This
you
is
guys
a
just
vibe.
wanna
We
talk
didn't even
about
get to
whatever.
food,
We
dude.
could set the room on fire again.
Shit. I love food. Gee, fuck. Well, whatever.
Well,
next time. Yeah.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Okay.
You can follow us at Weed and Grub on Instagram, on YouTube now at Weed and Grub, Mike and Mary Jane on TikTok. Leave a review. Watch Matt's shows, please. And anything else, Mary Jane?
It's the mayo for me. I'm still making sandwiches and talking about sexism over there, so give that a follow.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.